Hi, Tim Shields, Zaya America. Shin Ultraman was recently announced to be getting a US theatrical release, and I think that that's fantastic, because you should absolutely go see this movie. I've just released my first film, Gaiamatsu's Denkenstein, and tonight I'll be celebrating with a, glorious $3 wine from the Ashley Tisdale selection. It's a Pinot Grigio, so this is technically an Ultraman reference as well. I watched Shin Ultraman about oh no, wine has corks. It doesn't have a little twist off cap. I don't have a corkscrew. That's okay, I'm a genius, I'll figure this out. Okay, we got it! Alright, that's all we had to do. So if you ever don't have a corkscrew to get drunk with, you just poke a bunch of holes in it, and you push it on through. Kaboom! Had me worried for a second there. Look, I need this after what I've just been through, okay? Alright, Grigio, you get out of here, your joke is over. Those are way too expensive for me to fuck up and have to replace. Okay. Oh, that sure is a $3 wine. About a month ago, I watched Shin Ultraman. I'm known for being a bit of a hard sell for the Ultra franchise, something that I've discussed at great length previously, and I had heard very middling reception to this film leading up to its debut, with critics calling it simple compared to Shin Godzilla. I do not agree with this sentiment. In many ways, the two movies seem to share a lot of similarities, both centering around human will overcoming a sudden and massive cosmic horror. In the same way that Godzilla was the precursor to Ultraman, Shin Ultraman is building on the core themes of Shin Godzilla and transforming it into something different, something stranger, hence the title card sequence exploding from the stark and cold Shin Godzilla to Shin Ultraman in all of its color and dynamism. But as always, we're getting ahead of ourselves. What does it mean to be a buddy? Is society better standing together, or should we prioritize ourselves in the face of impending death? Do we stare into the cosmic unknown, or do we shy away from it in fear? Let's talk about Shin Ultraman. Oh god, it's so bad. Ugh. Larger than life. Ultraman. Searching for a hero. Searching for a man with all the right stuff. Searching for a hero. But super's just not enough. Super's just not enough. Ultraman. Before we start, disclaimer, I do have to say, as somebody who grew up with the ancient bargain bin Ultraman OG DVD releases, the very lo-fi quality of the copy that's been circulating the cat site that I used for this review is kind of the perfect way for me personally to have experienced this film. It hit a really nostalgic sweet spot, but I'm very much looking forward to supporting the official release when it comes stateside, and I highly encourage everybody else to as well, because I cannot imagine how cool this will be on a giant screen. The dialogue in this movie pops so hard. I love magical mundanity, it is arguably my favorite genre, and these conversations are all so cute. Like, characters are very defined, albeit very basic, which is true to the source material. You get a good sense of everybody early on, you get a movie thesis, you get a central idealistic conflict between the protagonists and the antagonists. It's very good, it's not clunky, it's very organic and charming. I loved it. It's incredible to me how much the crew captured the aesthetic of the original Ultraman series. It really does just look like upscaled footage from the 60s show, but with modern effects work. They also cut out all of the exposition by starting in medias res, which I appreciate both as a fan and for the mysterious approach to Ultraman that this movie decides to take. The soundtrack is hot as fuck and very on point, with a lot of apparent tribute to the source material. Although I hardly know the Ultraman OST by heart, let's be fair, so for all I know these may just be covers. Like, just straight up covers. They sound great, though. Showa sound effects all over really help to sell the recreation of the atmosphere of the original. It all just goes a long way in the sound design department. There's a tremendous focus on the cosmic horror of human beings being treated the way that human beings treat animals. This is poignant in light of Tsuburaya's history of animal abuse in the name of art, as well as OG Ultraman's brutal approach to dispatching his foes, so it feels like a very natural commentary on the franchise to me. The monster redesigns are fantastic, maintaining the core elements but updating them with modern animation technology in order to create aliens that just flat out wouldn't work with the proportions of human suitmation. This is importantly done with motion capture so as not to lose that grounded human feel that's so important to the action of Ultraman overall. It helps to heighten the more dramatic moves when they actually appear to emphasize their campiness and their spectacle, which is like the perfect application of CGI in modern tokusatsu. God, this movie's so fucking good. You're supposed to open it and then leave it out for a while so you let the tannins breathe, which gives it its unique bouquet and shit. So I know about being classy. Okay? I'm not just like an alcoholic, alright? I never even drink. I'm 6'9". I'm gonna drink this entire bottle and I'm only gonna get tipsy. God, it tastes like the Kids Bop version of communion wine. Ugh. There's also so many kaiju. We see the events of Ultra Q play out over the opening sequence that got leaked months ago, so I'm not even spoiling it for you, no worries. But, like, the monster count past that point puts this in, like, Godzilla crossover territory. But, like, Final Wars end of the Godzilla spectrum, okay? I think they hit double digits by the end if we count the Ultras. If you want giant monsters and kaiju and space aliens, then this movie has them in spades. There was a really good use of the classic Ultraman crucifixion pose. Very smart, not what I was expecting, but very much in line with the allegory of Ultraman as a Christ figure. There's a lot of that throughout the film, with Ultraman becoming an idol figure in the back half, and the ruling powers struggle to understand his captivation over the citizens of Japan especially, but ultimately the world. But it never beats you over the head with Jesus parallels the way that some other modern blockbusters do, and I think that that's really great. There's a lot of runtime devoted to the governments around the world reacting to the Ultraman as a scientific discovery and the weaponization and propaganda surrounding such events that I really appreciated. If Eva was originally a subversion of material like Ultraman, then this content feels right at home 30 years later, and it feels like a drastic step forward for the franchise in my opinion. Overall, I thought the acting was really fantastic, and I think our lead in particular did a really great job of selling his alienation as a creature making first contact on an unknown world of basically primitive barbarians. There are a lot of hints of Ultraman Zero in this movie, and I think that playing Shinji more like Ron from Revenge of Belial really benefited the more mysterious approach that they take to Ultraman conceptually. This is not a superhero movie. This is a science fiction movie like Ultraman was intended, and thank God. And the legacy of Ultraman is discarded in favor of an enigmatic reboot, something we know nothing about and slowly grow to understand as it grows to understand us. By humanizing Ultraman, by befriending the unknown, we as a species evolve, and that species evolves in response. It's the same ending as Shin Godzilla, and the core theme of this film. I wish that Ultraman took this approach more often. It's my favorite employment of the conceit. I was very intrigued by all of the lore because it was in service of the allegory. It reminded me a lot of Neo Ultra Q, which is my favorite Supro production, as everybody knows, because I keep promising to review it and then not getting around to it because I want to make stop motion real bad. I'm sorry. I never drink. The only flaw, and don't tell anybody about this, the only flaw with on the wine bottle is you gotta pick all the pieces of cork out after. So make sure you do that. Don't drink corks. Yeah, that was a mistake to get drunk for this. Holy shit, no wonder everybody else just fakes it. Oh my god. It's gonna be hard to read in a little bit. If you like Ultraman, you will like this movie. It has everything you would want to see from a modern interpretation of the original series. If you don't like Ultraman, you will like this movie. It ruthlessly dissects everything that you could take issue with from the original series. Go see this movie. It's incredible. I will be buying a copy as soon as I get the chance, and in my opinion, it absolutely measures up to and even builds on Shin Godzilla, and has earned a place beside it and Evangelion on my shelf. Okay, now we're doing the spoiler part, so if you don't want to hear about how cool this movie is or watch me get wasted for the next 20 minutes, then get the fuck out of my office. And spoilers. So the crucifixion pose comes with Ultraman protecting everybody by neutralizing radioactive breath and refusing to use his Zestium beam in order to minimize civilian casualty. This is what solidifies SSSP's belief in him as a hero. If the arrival of the kaiju were the death of the human spirit, metaphorically, as evidenced by the rest of the world's reactions to Ultraman outside of the SSSP, then the arrival of Ultraman is the rebirth of human hope in this metaphor, hence the crucifixion in this moment rather than in the finale, as is tradition in more ham-fisted Hollywood productions. The movie runs for about 2 hours, and it really does feel like 4 episodes of the show woven together. They're clearly distinct acts, although I don't intend for that to make it sound as if it isn't all flowing very naturally. We start with more bestial kaiju, graduate to aliens with sentience like Zarab and Mephiles with their own politics, and conclude with gods like Zophi and Zeton. These serve as a natural escalation mirroring the earthly politics our heroes at the SSSP find themselves struggling to accommodate. You know that you hit that point when you're drinking where you're like, am I tipsy or am I sliding over the rank into being drunk? And I feel like we're getting to that point. With the arrival of Zarab, we see it working with the Japanese government to create a fake Ultraman. This is used to propagandize the people into fearing Ultraman by turning their weapons on their own citizens. Japan immediately reacting to a perceived outside threat with hyper-patriotism. I'm sure you see where this is going. I think this is a pretty obvious criticism, especially with one sympathetic cabinet member voicing his disdain for so-called dominant countries imposing their will on an international front. This perspective and the narrative mystery behind Ultraman helped to inform the decision for Shinji to keep his identity as Ultraman secret for once. His mistrust of the government is well-founded by the material, as they seek only to exploit Ultraman as a weapon rather than as a defense for the world, a sentiment shared by the world's populace at large. This is measured against Shinji's existence as a merged human and alien, emphasized by how the state treats him versus how Asami treats him upon discovering his identity. Where the government tortures and interrogates him and spies on the SSSP, Asami takes a chance on trusting him and liberates him, literally placing her hands in Ultraman's life in one of the coolest sequences of the movie for the good of the planet, which is ultimately rewarded by the finale. This is, of course, reinforced further by the sequence with the giant Asami attack, with Mephiles putting one of our human characters directly in the shoes of Ultraman and making her a political puppet in the process. Ultraman as a scientific concept is being exploited and weaponized by the government, like the splitting of the atom was in World War II. The gendered pressure of Asami having her identity exploited to promote a perversion of her ideals, and her reliance on Mephiles' abuse of power dynamics to liberate her was really neat. It's not lingered on in the material for very long, but I thought it was a cool coin flip of the traditionally consensual Ultraman relationship, and more importantly, Asami gets to literally walk a mile in Shinji's shoes and realize the horror of being possessed by a giant alien with weird intent that you may or may not understand. It's all just very neat and Lovecraftian in a way that Ultraman rarely explores, but I always think is a pretty neat plot hook, right? I don't know, I'm fucking wasted. So Mephiles tries to seduce Ultraman, right, with like power and position, not like sexually necessarily, revealing that he views humanity as lesser, to be ruled over. He's been manipulating every event of the movie, right down to Ultraman's reactions, in order to make humans feel as insignificant as possible. All in the most cost-effective way, of course. So Ultraman now stands as the personification of that fear, right? He's an icon of cosmic indifference for humanity in the eyes of the populace, in light of the fake Ultraman attacks that Zarab manufactured. He's a very civilized gangster, Mephiles. He's the kingpin of space. He's just pulling all the strings. I wish that this was what Ultraman was always like. Wouldn't you rather be watching this? This is so fucking cool, don't you think? Whatever. Mephiles presents Ultraman with an opportunity to be rolled into the fascist war machine that he represents, and Ultraman denies him, his experience as a human connecting him to us in a way that Mephiles simply can't understand, having never actually engaged with the human conversation. It's also revealed that being human grants Ultraman sort of a legal loophole in the Land of Light rules, allowing him to beat ass when necessary, despite what the Land of Light thinks of him for it, which we all know my ass appreciates. Go watch my Ultraman Zero video, by the way. I'm very drunk. Holy shit. This really got away from me. Good lord. The SSSP sides with Ultraman, rejecting the government as Japan allies with Mephiles. Ultraman crashes the press conference Zaya style and steals the beta box, which is basically a device that turns you into a Ultraman, as we saw with Asami earlier, with Ultraman stating his case to Mephiles. The ends justify the means, specifically when it comes to protecting the disenfranchised from the greater systemic injustice at play.
Shinji
is revealed to be shouldering a tremendous physical strain in maintaining the Ultra form as a human, something that Mephiles is unburdened by as a fascist who considers everyone else biologically superior, a facade to be worn in manipulating us. I think that that's a cooler reveal than having a narrator say that his color turns red when he's out of fighting energy, whatever, highlighting how far storytelling has come in the past 55 years. We're at the end, by the way. Dog, all my shit, I'm so worried that all of my stuff is gonna be in a different place in each shot. You know what it is I wanted to say, hey, fuck you to all those critics who fucking pretended to be drunk when I was in, like, college, right? Because, like, it's not even that hard. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm reading everything totally fine, right? Like, obviously, I sound like a jackass, but that's, you know, who cares? You're on the internet, you already sound like a jackass. I'm a YouTube film critic, how much lower can I go? There's a lot of really great foreshadowing for Zeton, again calling us back to the cosmic horror of the whole conceit of the film. Mephiles deems the planet unworthy for not presenting any combative challenge, having utterly dominated Ultraman in their fight and humiliated him, which I think is awesome, by the way, effectively granting him the victory, at least idealistically, that he was after to begin with. However, he knows that even Mephiles wouldn't be able to stand against what's coming, and he departs, which is ironic, because perhaps he and Ultraman together would have had a much better chance of fighting back against this sudden escalation, but such is the folly of nationalism, am I right? We're stronger together than we could ever be apart. So, like, case in point, we see the SSSP starting to inspire members of the government individually to have faith in their people to guide themselves, and they begin to use their power for the good of the nation rather than to consolidate it or damn citizens, right? All it takes is one strong voice to get the conversation going, and then momentum carries it forward from that point. Oh my god, Ultraman fucking killed Takumi, right? Takara. Ultraman fucking killed
Shinji,
right? Like, guy gets hit by his impact protecting a kid.
Shinji.
I guess not. Ultraman has a discussion with Zophie about how he was intrigued by this, and he wanted to understand the urge to protect human life that
Shinji
exhibited in his last moments, despite it being forbidden by his government. So they merged, and he rebelled against them and rejected his own way of life. Like, how cool is that? Fuck! That's awesome. What a cool movie. I should fucking watch this drunk tonight. I'm gonna watch this tonight when I'm drunk. And I'll let you know if it's still cool, okay? So Zophi fucking rebukes him. He tells Ultraman, no, you're wrong, you've made a mistake. And we see parallels with how the governments of Earth have been reacting to the SSSP, and the Ultraman's presence, and the Kaiju's sudden presence and politics that it brought with them. Zophi points out that every life form in the universe now views human beings as potential merged bioweapons and suggests the genocide of the species, and subsequently the entire star system, right? And I'm so happy watching this movie, because this is everything that I was saying back about the show Ultraman in my Zero video, like, way back when I started out on this whole channel. Zeton is revealed to be a bioweapon created by the Ultras, which suddenly contextualizes how Zophi views humanity as potential bioweapons, right? This is a recurring theme across every alien race in this movie. Humanity is insignificant and only a pawn to be used in a greater political game. The only one who believes in us as individuals is Ultraman, who is
Shinji,
who is by extension Asami, who is by extension the SSSP. We, you and I, we're specks of dust in a universe that we can't even begin to comprehend. You may have noticed it's called string theory and not string fact. And the universe wants us to know that, because our single biggest, most powerful ally is literally just a gigantic intergalactic bullseye. We are animals, and we can be culled as easily as we have culled so many animals before us. As Zophi says, they know of over 13 billion intelligent life forms in the universe. Who's gonna miss one? But as the Ultraman counters, there is only one humanity, and he forsakes his people to protect us, which is something I always loved about Zero! Ultraman has, in the advent of Zeton, quickly replaced God for the people of Japan by giving God a tangible human form. It represents hope to the world, and in desperation, people who previously forsaked it have turned to the power that they feared so much days prior, a commentary perhaps on fair weather faith. The Ultraman is placed under the power of Japan and the UN by Japan and the UN, effectively ignoring everything about who he and
Shinji
are as individuals, and regarding him entirely as a cannon to be pointed at their enemies. Again, just like how the Showa Ultras treated Zero in his movie. Why is this a Zero movie? It's supposed to be OG Ultraman!
Shinji
Says that he's an observer who means no harm. He's like the Watcher with a temper. And the government responds by saying that foreigners don't trust him, which is especially ironic given that he's apparently people's god now, but that's not really unusual for people living in fear. The Japanese government and the UN threaten to murder the SSSP if Ultraman doesn't comply, and he's disgusted by the intimidation tactics by Earth's greatest moral authorities, intimidating the representative in kind by threatening to kill all of humanity in response if they kill the SSSP. The hypocrisy is thrown in his face by the representative, and he acknowledges that sometimes fighting for ideals means that people will die, a lesson that I think that sometimes these shows forget. Zeton looms over the planet as one of the members of the SSSP, Taki, has an existential meltdown, and Ultraman has a little G'd moment staring up at it that I thought was really cute. Look how fucking cute this cat is, everybody. Look at this good guy. He's Big Bing. I knocked over the wine. He's boneless. He doesn't give a fuck. He does kisses. He does chomps. Big chomps on your finger. He'll eat that shit. He doesn't care. He mostly just likes to hang out. Pretty good. Pretty good cat. Probably 9 out of 10. If you were going to get a cat, I would hugely recommend this one. Good model. Black and white. You know, he's got sort of themes of gray morality. As cats go, I'm a big fan. The Zeton fight I thought was really incredible. The sense of scale makes Ultraman feel so tiny, putting him in Asami's shoes the way that she had to wear his earlier in the film, which I liked a lot. Ultraman loses and wipes out in the sea and goes into a coma for a bit, which was refreshing. Asami ruminates in the fact that he went into the fight knowing that he would lose because he believes so hard in humanity and vows not to undermine that faith. The Japanese government reels from the loss and decides to just not tell the citizens so that they can die oblivious to the impending apocalypse and live happy for their last few hours. I can't decide if this part is darkly comedic or just really fucking bleak and horrifying, especially considering how my own government has treated the COVID pandemic. This is followed by Taki snapping out of his funk and discovering that, in an act of faith,
Shinji
left him a USB drive with the secrets to beta technology and biological expansion on it, which is what turns you into a Ultraman, basically. He wants humanity, specifically the SSSP, to figure out how to create their own beta devices so that they can elevate themselves to the same level as their threats.
Shinji
Tells the SSSP that Ultraman isn't God, he's an organism, just like humanity. They're one and the same, just like Ultraman and
Shinji.
By learning from each other, they can both evolve, a lesson that he learned from living among us. Exactly like Shin Godzilla, by the way! The world conducts a scientific summit over VR led by Taki, connecting minds from across the globe as
Shinji
recovers. Zeton enters its final firing position, and
Shinji
finally wakes up. The plan is made, and Ultraman prepares to sacrifice himself for humanity. I really want to stress how much this is classic Ultraman. One of my friends wrote a fantastic article about Eiji Tsuburaya's late-life Catholic conversion and the effect that it had on the series. I'm going to be linking that below. I won't spoil how it ends, but it is very much in the tradition of this sort of storytelling. There are a couple of incredible visual sequences, and a very funny homage to old practical effects, and it leads to an incredibly satisfying solution that I highly encourage you to go seek out and watch. Shin Ultraman is a masterpiece. It's simultaneously a love letter to and a deconstruction of the same franchise, one very dear to the creators' hearts, and every frame of this movie drips with that affection. It's weird, it's funny, and it's heartwarming. It's what Ultraman should be. I couldn't be happier with it. Thank you so much for watching. Like, sub, comment, share, all that shit. I have early release stop-motion tokusatsu cartoons for the Zion Theater sketches going up whenever I have those complete. That's on my Patreon. I have a bunch of little video memes. I have some music recuts. I have a couple exclusive video series on the $5 tier. But if you want your name in the credits, if you want early access to upcoming videos like this, support starts for as low as $1 and everything goes right back into the channel. The article I mentioned is listed below. Patreon, Coffee, Twitter, all that shit. I'm probably gonna go make more cartoons. Actually, I'm probably gonna go play some fucking Pokemon and pass out and then go make more cartoons. But for now, I've been Tim Shields, President and CEO of Zion America, and when it comes to tokusatsu, I'm your fucking guy, dude.